When it comes to combat in a video game, the truth is everyone has their preference. That's why looking at Hytale from one particular angle or another is incredibly challenging. My name is Kodiak, and today we'll break down over 500 survey responses to the question, how do you want combat to work in Hytale? Looking at the survey results, one thing is for certain: you can't agree on anything. That's why today's video is going to be a little different. Instead of telling you how many people said what, I'm going to focus in on a subject that was brought up and talk about how it could possibly be implemented in Hytale. So let's not waste any more time and jump in. We're going to start with one of the broadest concepts that was brought up in the survey: complexity. We'll start with some of the simplest concepts and work our way up to the more advanced ones. I saw a number of responses suggesting a click-based combat system, where players would click to attack, and no matter what weapon was equipped, the system would respond the same way. That means that weapon weight class would be largely irrelevant. For example, a two-handed mace would function the exact same way as a one-handed dagger. From the responses, what I gather is that simplicity is key. Players that ask for this type of system don't seem to prioritize combat, and thus put less stock in the complexity of the system. Now, moving to a slightly more complex concept, we introduce weapon weight classes and parrying, two ideas that came up a number of times in the survey. In this system, clicking would still be the primary way to attack, but depending on the weapon you have equipped, your attack speed and damage would change. On top of those variables, parrying would also be implemented, allowing players a simple way to block, negate, or stagger opponents with a well-timed defensive ability. From the trailer, we can see elements of this system already in the works, primarily in the scene where the player is fighting a Trork. The player can be seen swinging a one-handed sword, and at one point brings up his shield to block an incoming attack. We can take this concept one step further if we look at a scene where a small party of players is fighting what appears to be a boss. If we slow down this clip, you can see that the soldier appears to be winding up a two-handed mace attack. This could provide players another layer of complexity and depth to the combat system, and can provide players with an incentive to use two-handed weapons. Usually a charged up ability results in higher damage, but leaves the player exposed to enemy attacks. There's no official word on this, but a concept we can identify in the available content. Now let's step it up one more time and add additional complexities into the game, like dodging and rolling, directional parrying, and dynamic hit detection. If you played The Witcher 3 or maybe even a Dark Souls game, you're probably well versed in the art of the dodge. The ability to completely avoid an enemy attack is often worn as a badge of honor and forces players to stay invested in a fight, but only if the damage they would receive from the enemy is substantial enough to make dodging worth it. Likewise, directional parrying could add yet another layer of complexity into the mix. Enemy abilities could be forecasted on a player's UI, and they could respond by parrying the incoming attack, resulting in decreased damage taken or staggering the enemy, giving players the opportunity to strike. This sort of back and forth system would on paper be much more in depth, but could drastically affect the pace of combat, which could turn some players off. Finally, dynamic hit detection is something I wish more games did. Players would be able to identify critical points in the enemy and attack those vulnerabilities, inflicting more damage, rendering their opponents disabled, or changing the way an opponent attacked. Unfortunately, the more you add to a combat system, the bulkier it gets, and that could be a big problem for players that just want things to be simple. Now, I'll try and sum this section up with a quote from one of the respondents that said, "I want a combat system with a low skill floor and a high skill ceiling." And to be quite honest, I'm okay with that statement. Combat should be accessible to everyone, especially in a game where combat is only one part of the experience. Give everyone the tools to get the job done, but also make it possible for more skilled players to get more out of the combat experience. So let's put the specifics of the combat system aside for a second and talk about one of the most popular subjects brought up in the survey: weapons. It's clear having options is important to pretty much everyone. And with a game like Hytale, that very well could be a thing. We've seen a number of classic weapons like swords, shields, and axes pop up across concept art and media elements released by the Hypixel team. But there is a real opportunity here. Hytale gives players the chance to live out their fantasies in a virtual world, and for some, that puts combat front and center. The biggest hurdle I can see the team running into with weapon variety is relevance. In my golden years of World of Warcraft, I would have had dozens of weapons in my bags or showcased them using the transmog system, changing the skins but not the stats of my weapons. And this is where the problem occurs. Players want to use the best gear that's going to help them get the job done, the strongest weapons for the most challenging enemies, but that often means forcing players to choose an item they may not enjoy. Now, in a perfect world, there would be a system where players could use whatever weapon they want and have it be relevant. And while many games have tried, it's hard to please everyone when you start adding dozens of weapon classes into the mix. Now, as far as we already know, weapons follow the trajectory of some of the most classic RPG standards. If we look at the tooltip for the Demonic Axe, we can glean plenty of useful information. First, weapons will have a rarity, which breaks down into 4 known categories: common, rare, epic, and legendary. We can also see that each weapon has a classification, in this instance a one-handed axe. Next, we see the weapon speed. Again, in this case, we see the Demonic Axe is a fast weapon. Next, we can infer that the number at the bottom right-hand corner of the frame is a durability rating. Of course, we also have the damage numbers as well as the DPS numbers. And finally, we see that this legendary weapon has 2 effects and some simple lore associated with it. Now, all of this information I just mentioned shouldn't surprise anyone. There's nothing really groundbreaking about it, but it does allow players to infer what they can expect to see from the most developed weapons in the game. Obviously, this could change if there is a rarity beyond legendary, or if the team decides to juice up the system once again, but this is an important baseline for everyone to understand. I hope it's no surprise, but another topic brought up in a lot of surveys was the Minecraft combat system, specifically ideas and controversies surrounding patch 1.7, 1.8, and the infamous 1.9. It was clear from the results that, again, players were on both sides of the fence. On the one hand, there were players that wanted a simple click-style combat system where the speed of your clicking determined how fast you could swing your weapon. It was apparent from the responses that the swing cooldown implemented in Minecraft patch 1.9 was a big issue for players, but as someone with very little experience with that patch, I'm curious to know why. If you're someone that's played on both sides of that patch, let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Now, I have my suspicions why so many players were against the change, but I'd rather hear it from you guys directly. Now, we can't talk about Hytale combat without talking about magic. In fact, the word magic came up 92 times throughout the survey results. It's a big deal, and for a good reason. The Hytale trailer teased a number of scenes involving magic, and concept art released by the team has only acted as a catalyst for excitement and speculation. Much like our complexity conversation, I wanted to step through this one in increments, getting more complex with each idea. Throughout the survey, I saw a number of requests for a basic magic system. Players would be able to unlock, discover, or craft a spell, equip that spell, and simply click to cast. The complexity comes with the collection or creation of the spell, not necessarily the act of casting the spell. Similarly, magic could be tied to weapons. If we slow down and freeze elements of the trailer, we can see that a fireball spell being cast comes from what looks like a fire-based staff. Now, magic is one of the secrets the Hypixel team is keeping close to the vest, but there are a lot of benefits of tying spells to weapons, specifically simplicity. Now, I'm stepping into dangerous territory here, but it's important that we talk about another system of magic popularized by SKYRIM. In my interview with Noxy, he even brought up the SKYRIM magic system, but said it wasn't exactly his vision for Hytale. Nonetheless, we saw a number of responses about this system throughout our survey, so let's quickly discuss the possibilities. SKYRIM uses magic classes to categorize a variety of spells. The spells can be equipped to either the right or left hand, and can be used in conjunction with another weapon or shield. Directly transferring this system over to Hytale could work, but we already know that a class-based system isn't exactly what Hytale has in mind. So there are some challenges. We know nothing of skill trees or specializations, and I won't speculate about either, but we have to keep an open mind until we have some hard evidence to prove otherwise. Finally, let's just step off the reserve and talk about a pretty elaborate idea I saw in the survey. One respondent touched on a system of magic that could involve gestures or incantations. Simple spells could be cast by simple means, while more powerful spells would take longer, hit harder, and be more complex to cast. It's an interesting idea, but one I think is just a bit out of the realm of possibility, given everything we know about the game thus far. So let's end with a subject I'm all too familiar with: skills. It's come up a number of times throughout the survey, and again, there are layers of complexity we can discuss to put the idea into focus. A simple system could include 1 or 2 skills that tie into the player's adventure. We've already seen a number of flashy moves used in the trailer, like the Shield Bash and the Two-Handed Whirlwind. These simple spells could easily be tied to a weapon class and could vary in complexity and effect. Broadening this out to a MOBA-like style 4 or 5 abilities could be tied to a character based on a number of factors. By giving players the option to build out their character with a combination of skills, it could help them create their own identity throughout combat. The skill system could be expanded further, but the more we overcomplicate the idea, the less likely it will work in the world of Hytale as we know it currently. Nevertheless, skills were a popular suggestion in the survey, and one that could work to help players live out those adventures they're making in their heads. So I apologize that this video was so long, but combat is going to be a big part of Hytale, and a subject I don't think we should just gloss over. We've covered a number of topics, and I'm sure you have your own opinions, so go ahead and share them in the comments section below. Remember, you can also join the Game Gurus on Discord to stay up to date with the channel, talk to our team directly, and hang out with dozens of other fans excited about Hytale. My name's Kodiak, and from everyone here at the Game Gurus, thanks for watching, and play on.